Okay, so hello everyone. It's really nice to have you here in the launch event of our AREN. It's been something that we've been preparing for quite a big time, and it's a really exciting time for all of us to have you. So I'm Lamis Al-Khair, and I'll be your moderator for this session and also co-host. The layout of the event would be like we'll have two speakers. We have Emmanuel from AREN and Professor Marcus from UK AREN, who will share with us their experience. And then we will go into sort of a Q&A panel discussion, something in between. But please, throughout the meeting, feel free to post any questions in the chat, and I'll try to keep tabs on the questions. And then in the Q&A, depending on the number of the questions, we might invite you to ask your question directly to our speaker, or I will ask them for you. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Emmanuel Boakye. Emmanuel is actually the founder and the director of AREN, the African Reproducibility Network, and he will have a presentation that outlines what we have been doing so far. Okay, so Emmanuel, if you could share your screen.
Thank you very much, Lamis. I believe you can see my screen, right?
Yes, perfect.
Okay. Thank you very much. So like you said, my name is Emmanuel, and I'm leading a wonderful team made of Lamis and two other members that we are trying to set up AREN in Africa. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through what AREN is. Then we're going to look at how we believe the AREN model could achieve holistic cultural change in Africa. And then we'll look at our agenda, our strategy, and we did a little bit of community survey, and we're going to also look at into those data. And then finally, we'll end with how you can join our community. So, when you look at what has been happening in the African open science ecosystem in the recent years, you can realize that a lot of activity has been pushing for a more open research ecosystem. Last year, the Association of African Universities annual African Universities Day was themed Open Science, bringing equity to research and publishing, where they engage with high-level members from institutions and organizations across Africa to have discussions around how to promote open science. You could see how this was followed by TCC Africa organizing regional engagement dialogues. They did one in South Africa, then Central Africa and Eastern Africa. And what they are trying to do is to ensure that the high-level management of various organizations, institutions are aware of the importance of open science and then discuss how they can promote open science across Africa. You could also talk about LipSense, which was established by WACRIN to also promote open science. They've been organizing symposiums across Africa periodically. So you realize what this does is that it places an increasing demand on researchers in Africa to adopt open principles, but we also acknowledge the fact that transition to open science is not so easy, especially for researchers that are already used to the traditional system. And that is where it becomes important for the necessary support and resources to be provided for such researchers so that the transition is made smooth. And that is what AREN as a community-led initiative is trying to do by identifying the gaps that are existing in our efforts to establish an open research ecosystem, and then through discussions and interactions with the local communities, bridge these gaps through trainings and workshops and other models that we've established. What AREN is trying to do is part of an international effort. We are part of a family of ARENs globally, and this family has been growing quite impressively in recent years. We have representations across North America, South America. We have several across Europe. We have one in UK and Australia. So this is a sign that the AREN model is quite effective in promoting responsible research practices within our research ecosystem. And we believe that the AREN model can help in achieving holistic cultural change. So in 2019, Brian Nosek of the Center for Open Science proposed that if you want to really achieve an open research ecosystem, we need to consider 5 different levels for achieving this. Brian talked about the fact that for it to be possible, we need the infrastructure. If I want to publish a preprint, I need a preprint server to be able to do this, right? And then he says that if the server exists, there has to be a user interface that makes it easy. And after that, there need to be communities that make it normative. If I'm practicing open science and then researchers in my community are not doing so, I may not be encouraged to do this, right? And then he says that when we have incentives there that make practicing open science rewarding, it will also encourage people to practice open science, whilst policies at the higher level would also make it a requirement. We believe that the AREN model has adaptable and flexible indices, which allows different levels of organization and activity to be established, where you could look at informal self-organizing groups, such as researchers at the department in the university can decide to come together and form a local community of practice and promote responsible research practices. And you could have several of these nodes coming together at the institutional level to be formally recognized. Or we could have the national ARENs that are trying to collaborate efforts across various institutions in the country. And what the AREN model allows is that it allows interactions with various stakeholders such as funders and publishers. And when you look at this model, what it does is that when you relate it to Brand's pyramid, you can see that when you have levels such as the national institutional ARENs, it can help in establishing policies, which makes open science a requirement. And then you could have funders and publishers also incentivizing the act of open science, right? And then we could have the informal sessions such as the nodes and the institutional ARENs and the national ARENs forming communities that make practicing open science normative. And then we could also have all these factors coming together, such as the funders, such as the national ARENs, institutional ARENs, and then those coming together to develop infrastructure that makes it possible to practice. And a unique aspect of the AREN model is that it allows training and workshops, which also helps to make the use of the existing resources also easy. So you can realize that ARENs help in achieving all these levels of Brand's proposed pyramid for achieving holistic cultural change, and makes it possible to achieve what we seek to achieve in Africa. So for AREN, what we are trying to do as an initiative, an organization, is that we want to ensure that we establish from training and workshops that kind of allow interactions with the local communities. What we are trying to do is that we don't want to propose solutions to the communities, but we want to engage them, have that discourse and dialogue with the communities to ensure that the solutions we are providing actually fit into the local context, because as the UNESCO recommendation said, there is no one-size-fits-all approach to open science, and therefore for you to be able to achieve an effective practice in the local community, you need to engage the local community to ensure that these are the needs that they have, and then these solutions are actually solving the needs that they have, right? So what we want to do is to engage researchers directly through our training and workshops, and then we also want to ensure that we promote the establishment of local networks. We believe that this will ensure sustainability. We don't want to just engage the researchers through training. We also want to ensure that there is sustainability for the long term. So these communities of practice would help provide support and also make it normative and ensure that it's rewarding, also help in developing policies that will ensure sustainability for the long term. And the third thing that we also felt was a necessity was to create a continent-wide open science community. And this is important because across Africa, the activity in terms of open science are different. So we could have a lot of open science activity in South Africa, in Ghana, in Nigeria, in Kenya, but that may not be the same for other countries. So we felt the need to establish a continent-wide open science community, which allows anyone, regardless of the level of activity in their regions, to come together and learn, even collaborate on projects, and also learn how they can lead advocacy efforts within their regions. And this is important to what we want to do, because such individuals can serve as gateways to their local communities and help us to reach these regions that have not had a lot of activity in terms of open science. So to be able to achieve this, we had to come up with a very, very structured model that will encompass all the requirements for achieving all these elements that we've been talking about. So we came up with a training model, and the model is adaptable and has 3 different levels. So the first level is supposed to establish understanding of open science concepts and principles, while the second level would help in ensuring that these principles transition into practicals, where researchers learn how they can actually integrate open science concepts and principles into their research workflows. And we have the third level, which is optional, but also quite important. That is a trainer level, which we believe will establish support systems for local communities. And the levels are designed in such a way that they transition into one another. So for someone to be able to take part in level 2, they have to go through level 1. And what we believe this will do is that it will provide a comprehensive knowledge building and also ensure that the skills that they have align with the knowledge and understanding that they have concerning open science. And the model is also adaptable because we have to consider the fact that various communities have preferences. If I'm engaging a community of biological scientists, they may have a preference for which aspect of open science they are really interested in. So the model is adaptable, and then we allow room for dialogue with the community to ensure that what we are delivering to the community actually aligns with their interest. And then we also, like I said, the trainer-trainer model is optional, but we would really encourage every community or institution that we engage with to also have individuals that go through the trainer-trainer model, because this establishes a support system that makes it possible for challenges that come up in adopting and practicing open science principles addressed. So when we look at the levels in terms of a topic, when we take reproducible research, we could say that for level 1, we could look at what reproducibility is and the factors that affect reproducibility and the role of, let's say, open data and open source and other topics that are relevant in establishing comprehensive understanding of what reproducible research is. Then at level 2, we could look at how to build a reproducible research workflow, or how they could put detailed research protocols that can be shared and be used by other researchers across the world. And then with level 3, we believe that for someone to be part of the trainer-trainer program and also provide support to the community, they have to be an expert at the subject matter. So a researcher could decide to go through certain aspects of the topic, like certain aspects of the topics under reproducible research, but a trainer or an ambassador has to go through all these levels to ensure that they are able to troubleshoot any problems that come in and provide support. And an aspect under the trainer is also technical proficiency, where they should be well versed in using some of the resources related to the topic, like let's say how to create reproducible research workflows. Are there online platforms like electronic notebooks and etc. that can be used? A trainer should be quite proficient in some of these things so that he can provide support to the local community whenever they need assistance and guidance. And then we also considered a community participation model, which allows for everyone across Africa to be able to contribute to everything that we are doing. So we created this to ensure that regardless of someone's level of expertise or understanding, they can feel that they are part of our community and they are also contributing to what we are doing. So at the contributor level, we could have people translating some of our materials into other languages, because Africa has a lot of countries here which speak different languages. So we could have people speaking French and others speaking Portuguese and Swahili. And in order to be able to reach researchers in that community, we need people that can help translate these materials for us. So those are roles that some of the people that are in the contributor role could do. We could also have ambassadors, which aligns with our trainer-trainer model, who are people that can help in organizing and leading training sections or setting up local networks in their communities or their institutions. And then we have the specialist advisory role. This role is quite important for us because we realize that for regions that have a lot of open science activity, they may have several individuals that are actually experts in open science because they've been serving in various roles from the government level to the institutional level in terms of open science, and they've helped in developing a lot of policy and infrastructure. And we believe that such people should be accessible to the broader research community. So if I find myself in a country where there's not a lot of open science activity, but I want to engage in open science activity, like let's say develop an infrastructure, or start a research or develop policy, we want these aspects across Africa to be easily accessible to people in regions where there's not a lot of activity, and we believe that it will help in making the transition from open science to make it more easier, right? So what we've also considered is how important community feedback is for us. We organized a couple of community intersections a couple of months ago, and what we did was to get community feedback from for how things have been progressing. We introduced our model to them and got feedback for them and suggestions on how we can improve our model. So community feedback has been very important to us because AREN is a community-led initiative, and we prioritize what the community thinks and how the community thinks we should move forward. So to better understand distribution across Africa and how we can best proceed, we did a mini survey as part of people signing up to join AREN, and we had a wonderful result. There are 15 countries currently with AREN representations, and Nigeria was the largest represented country across Africa, and we had 49 institutions or organizations that were part of individuals that signed up. And then aside the life and health and biological sciences that has 62%, was followed by the humanities and social sciences. And then we had a combined 68% being the faculty, researchers, or postgraduates. So to get a clearer understanding of how our members understand open science concepts or their knowledge about open science concepts and how they would be willing to participate in some of the things we do, we also did a section of the survey that assessed their familiarity, and we realized that 86% said they knew about open access, which was expected because the issue about paywalls and open access is quite popular within the several research communities. And this one was followed by open data and open source, which we also expect because of the requirements around submitting research materials when it comes to publishing in certain open access journals. And then we follow this by asking them how well they understood some of the concepts they accepted. And we had 16% saying they were quite confident in understanding the concepts that they said they knew about. And we had 32.7% saying averagely they understood some of these concepts. So we moved on by asking them what topics they'll be interested in learning. And we realized that majority of them were chose reproducible research, open labs, and open innovation, and almost half of the individuals signed up to join our committee said they were interested in all the topics. So that was an interesting result, and it encourages us to ensure that we look at various aspects of open science when we are delivering our training and workshops. Also, because AREN is a community-led initiative and we want to fully engage our community members in everything we do, we decided to also ask about how they'll be willing to provide resources or support or advocacy or development discussions. And we had 98% of everyone, all the people that signed up saying they were open to developing resources, and 92% saying they were willing to lead engagement efforts or mentoring new members that are the members that are new to open science within their communities. And then we also had 92% saying that they could help in leading these discussions, let's say open science within the bioinformatics, open science within the immunology, open science within, let's say, the physical sciences. They said they were willing to lead these discussions, which was quite encouraging for us. I'd like to say earlier, AREN is a community-led initiative, so we are quite interested in you joining us. You can you can just scan the QR code here, or you can just send us an email to team@africanaren.org if you are interested in learning more or contacting us to have discussions about how we could work together. Or you could also use the link that will be shared in the chat to just sign up to join our community. We'll be glad to have you because what we are trying to do is quite unique. And we hope that everyone's interests are aligned and we consider how we can best provide solutions that fit the local context in Africa and globally too. So far, since we started, we've been working with a number of organizations. We've been working with ELAC, we've been working with the R4E, and we've been working with UKI, which has been a collaborator on the international level. And then we've had ORFG agreeing to fund our activities. So that is quite interesting. So we are looking forward to how things will proceed from here. Thank you very much. Lamis, over to you.
Thank you, Emmanuel, for this overview of what has been going on behind the scenes at AREN in the past couple of months. And I hope that all the participants got the basic idea of what we're trying to do at AREN. But please, if you have any questions, please feel free to post them in the chat, and then we will get to them in the Q&A sessions. So now we'll move to our next speaker, which is Professor Marcus Munafò. and he is actually the chair of UK AREN. And he's been a great support for us at AREN to get ourselves established. So Professor Marcus will share with us their experience at UK AREN, and Professor, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you for the invitation to speak, and it's fantastic to see the launch of AREN, and really gratifying that the work that we started a few years ago around setting up these reproducibility networks has reached this point. I'm going to talk a little bit about the UK Reproducibility Network, which was launched in 2019. So although we were the first, we still are a relatively young organization, but as you will see, we have grown as a network, and the number of national networks has grown as well. So why did we set up the network? Well, in the UK, certainly, but I think also globally, there has been growing interest in the extent to which the research that we produce is robust. And you can see here examples of that. So in the UK Parliament, our House of Commons Science, Innovation and Technology Committee ran an inquiry into reproducibility and research integrity. And on the right, UK Research and Innovation published a report on research integrity, which touched on many similar issues. And so these concerns around how we can improve the quality of the work we produce have reached the level of funders and the level of government in the UK and beyond. And the reason that we are focused on open research is that, in our view, open research puts the emphasis on the research process. And if we draw lessons from other sectors, such as automobile manufacturing, that focus on the process should result in processes that generate robust outputs. In other words, when we're evaluating research, rather than focus on the end product of that research, the journal article, for example, we should place more emphasis on ensuring that the process is robust and then trusting that process to generate robust outcomes. So when we talk about research integrity on the right, there are different facets to that: professional behaviors, managing risks, ethics and governance, but then the research process itself. And it's that research process that is very much our focus. And it was a statistician, W. Edwards Deming, who in the 1970s took the concept of quality control in manufacturing to the Japanese automobile industry and transformed that industry in terms of the reliability of the products that it generated. And the argument is that we should be doing something similar in academic research, improving the quality of the process, improving the quality of the outputs that we generate as a result. And actually that transformation was embodied in what became known as the Toyota process. And the principles of the Toyota process are shown here: continuous improvement, respect for people, the right process will produce the right results, developing people and partners, and solving problems drives organizational learning. So although our focus is on the process, that central point, actually these principles, I think, can be applied very usefully to a range of other contexts, including academia. So that was the main motivation behind setting up the UK Reproducibility Network in 2019. And you can see our website there, and you're welcome to visit our website where we have a range of resources available to download. And the basic structure of UK AREN, which has been modeled with some variations in other national reproducibility networks, is that we have three major parts to our network. The first are our local networks. So these are informal, self-organizing groups of researchers that come together to run journal clubs, seminar series, share best practice, share experiences. And those are headed up by a local network lead. And we have those at 65 institutions in the UK at the moment. Then we have institutional members, and institutions joined by creating a senior academic role focused on research improvement that sits at the senior management level and looks at training, hiring and promotion criteria, and so on. And we have those at about 30 UK institutions. And the hope is that eventually we will have both a local network lead and an institutional lead at every institution, with those two working in partnership, challenging each other, advocating for each other. So they work as a team. And one represents the voice of the grassroots community, and the other can work at the senior management level. And then the third major part that we have is our stakeholder engagement group. These are the funders, the publishers, and the learned societies. And that structure allows us to coordinate and foster collaboration, both within and between those three different elements. So our local networks can come together to form a national community of practice, and we run an annual retreat for them. We have the advantage of being a relatively small country, so it's easier to come together physically. And that is a point I'll come back to later. What works in one country is not necessarily what works in another. Similarly, at an institutional level, we can bring our institutions together, and they are working on harmonizing their approaches to open research across those institutions at the moment. And then within our stakeholder group, we can create partnerships between, for example, funders and publishers. So this is what things look like in the UK at the moment, and the map is slightly out of date because we have new institutions joining all the time, new local networks forming, but it's very much a peer-led consortium driven by that grassroots energy and enthusiasm for change. The focus is on improving research by working collaboratively to reform research culture and practice. And although we began very much in the biomedical and life sciences space, we are working hard to be relevant to and inclusive when it comes to a range of other disciplines, including the arts, humanities, and social sciences. These are some of our stakeholders, the funders and the publishers, other sectoral organizations, professional bodies. And so we are fortunate enough to be very well supported. Our strategy for funding was that initially we asked a large number of funders for a relatively small amount of money, and that was enough for us to appoint an administrator and set up a website. And the network was and still is hosted by the University of Bristol. But our long-term strategy was to get, or our medium-term strategy was to get more substantial funding. And I'll come back to what we were able to get and how we're using that in a moment. And then finally, over the last few years, we've seen a growth in the number of national reproducibility networks. And again, this figure is slightly out of date because the number is growing all the time. Within Europe, we now have networks in Norway, Denmark, Belgium, the Netherlands, which are not shown on this map. But we also have an international presence. Early national reproducibility networks outside of Europe included Brazil and Australia. And again, that number is growing all the time, but we have about 20 national networks. And one of the principles of reproducibility networks is that they need to be flexible enough to adapt to local and national contexts. So within the UK, we have universities ranging from the very large to the very small, more teaching intensive, more research intensive. So it's quite a varied range of universities, and what works at each one needs to be slightly tailored to that local context. But as much as possible, we try to work in a coordinated way. The same is true at a national or supranational level. So these different countries have very different systems, funders, levels of resource available to them. We have one country, Luxembourg, that only has a single university. So it's a network of one university. And then, as we're seeing today, there are some regions where the right level of abstraction is at the continental level to begin to create that critical mass. And so we have the African Reproducibility Network, which is, I think, a particularly exciting development because, again, the needs of scholars and universities within the African continent are going to be very different to those within, for example, Europe or North America. And we need to make sure that we are both coordinating what we do across those different nations and regions, but also ensuring that the resources we make available are relevant and freely available to as wide a community of scholars as possible. So I mentioned that our medium-term strategy was to secure more substantial programmatic funding, and we were able to do this 2 years into our existence back in 2021, where we received funding from Research England to accelerate the uptake of high-quality open research practices. And so this is our main focus at the moment, generating resources for open research practices, establishing train-the-trainer activity to support the training of researchers at all career stages across our partner institutions, generating resources that can be used by as wide a community as possible. So, for example, we have created a number of short, brief, simple primers on open research practices. You can see where they can be found on our website there. These cover major open research practices like data sharing, open code and software, preprints, and they're intended to be a starting point for people who have not yet engaged in open research practices and want to know where they should start. And we have supplemented these with animations, video testimonials, and in a couple of cases, webinars. So there are a range of materials around these core topics. And what we found is that these have been particularly popular amongst researchers from countries where English isn't the first language, where often resources are not available to help them start their open research journey. And these primers are intended to be a way in which people can get started. And we also have been developing vignettes that describe what open research looks like across different disciplines. Much of the discussion around open research has started in biomedical and life sciences or scientific disciplines, but actually the principles of open research can be applied across a broad range of disciplines, from the arts and humanities all the way through to the physical sciences. And so these vignettes that again are available on our website are intended to describe what open research can look like in a variety of different contexts. And that, I think, highlights really the key features of what we're trying to achieve through these reproducibility networks. The fact that they are very much peer-led grassroots consortia that capture that energy of early and mid-career researchers as well as senior researchers, and channel that to drive the culture change that is needed to embed these open research practices, and to do that in a collaborative way. So we have, for example, in the context of the wider research culture conversations that are happening in the UK and other countries at the moment, established a catalogue of different activities that are happening across different institutions in the UK to allow other institutions to learn what others are up to and to draw on those examples and implement them locally. And although these examples are very much focused on the UK context, there's plenty in there that I think could easily be translated to other contexts. And so one of the things that we very much want to foster is this idea that what we're doing is not zero sum. We can collaborate in a way that benefits all of us and drive up the standard of how we work across the board, coordinating that activity locally, nationally, and now increasingly supranationally across the family of national reproducibility networks. And that's what makes today particularly exciting, that we now have this enormous contingent of scholars on board as part of that collaborative activity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Marcus. This was really inspiring, especially for us at AREN, and I think for all of the participants, to know how much could be done and how much is there to be done. And I think your point about trying to engage disciplines that are not normally associated with open science is very important, because we see, as you said, a lot of the arts and the humanities and the social sciences have been shoved out, and open science have been sort of dominated by STEM disciplines. So thank you very much for your presentation. So I guess now we have quite a bit of time. So there were 2 questions in the chat. Maybe I would ask the participants who asked them to join in. So first it was Sameh Ali. If you'd like to unmute yourself and ask the question.
Yes, hello everyone. It's a great pleasure to be among this, initiation efforts. I just wanted to know a little bit more about the financial model of this. So what kind of fundraising efforts has been done, and what are the prospective plans for this purpose? And if these fundings are going to be spent, for example, for holding workshops for the participants in order to spread the word and to start or initiate the efforts locally, and then intercontinentally, and then eventually internationally. Thank you.
Thank you, Sameh. I think the question is for Emmanuel. Would you like to respond?
Yeah, thank you very much, Lamis. So far, one of the difficulties when you want to establish initiatives like this is getting funding, but AREN has been quite lucky in the sense that our first funding application, like I said, to the Open Research Funders Group was a success. Strategically, what we want to do with this money is to push them into our training and workshops and establishing local networks. So how does these two align? In the sense that the training and workshops are supposed to provide the knowledge and resources that the researchers need, and then the local networks will provide the support that is also necessary. So as to the extensive discussions around how we are going to break this down. We are still in discussion with that. And I think there's also something that we have discussions with our funder for now. So we've not progressed so far when it comes to that, but that is discussions that we're going to have, and we will ensure that we make the community aware when we have enough information to give out. Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you, Emmanuel. I just wanted to point out that all of the efforts that have been currently happening, like they're being voluntary efforts, and this shows how like people are committed to having open science spread all over Africa. So we have another question in the chat. It was from Tahabisu. I'm sorry if I pronounced the name wrong. Tahabisu Mutang, please unmute yourself.
You got it right. I hope you can hear me. So my question was to Marcus. So I realized that part of the question was answered. So it was more on whether if they have what was the overall experience regarding the integration of preprints into the research reproducibility landscape. And so what kind of experience and how is the community within your network has been receiving using preprints in driving the missions of AREN, of UK AREN in this case?
So I think preprints are quite well established in the UK at the moment. And certainly UK AREN is making extensive use of preprints. Many of the documents that we create, many of the guidance documents for universities, for example, are effectively posted as preprints on preprint servers like the Open Science Framework. And more generally, preprints are recognized now as research outputs by funders. You can include preprints in your grant applications, for example. They're recognized by Research England, who run our research excellence framework, this national exercise to evaluate the quality of the research that we produce. You can submit preprints to those exercises in exactly the same way that you can submit journal articles. So I think it's fair to say that in the UK at least, and by extension within UK AREN, preprints are widely used and widely recognized. But of course, that is variable across disciplines. There are some disciplines where that is more the case than others, and it's also variable across different countries. And I'll put the link to our primers page in the chat in case anyone's interested in the preprints primer that we have there or any of the other ones.
Thank you, Marcus. And it's nice to see this brought up because preprints, it's a huge, I think, area that has not been explored in Africa, even though that we have preprint servers such as AfriArchive, but there's still, we don't see many African researchers willing to publish as preprints. And I think this is an interesting topic to look into why researchers in Africa don't like to use preprints. Is it lack of knowledge, or there are some other reasons maybe behind it? So it would be nice to explore that once we move further in AREN. I think we have another question from Anilda. I hope I pronounced it right. Could you unmute yourself? Anilda van der Watt.
Hi, thank you so much. And you pronounced it perfectly. Thank you very much. So I have a comment, more than a comment followed by a question. First of all, I was really excited when I learned about this network being formed. And when I joined the room just now, sorry, I was late. I had to finish another meeting. It's so good to see so many African researchers caring about reproducibility. And well done for setting up a meeting where you actually have advertised in a way that people know about it and showed up. So that's really good to see. I'm from South Africa. I ran a consulting company working with universities to help researchers adopt technology in their research. My background is in bioinformatics. But more specifically, I think in the context of my work with the African research software and systems engineering community, I think there's a lot of overlap between the things that we want to achieve and this network. And so if anybody here develops software as part of your research work, you're welcome to join us. We do run community meetups, and I think there's a lot of of, as I said, overlap and information that can be shared there that is also useful to you. But I also do think that this network does more than what RCC Africa do on other fronts. So important to be part of all the networks. But I wanted to know if there's a way for RCC Africa and AREN to work more closely together formally. Is there like opportunities to explore partnerships or formal collaborations, or exploring ways that we can apply for funding together, or anything to push these communities forward?
Emmanuel, would you please answer?
Yeah, thank you very much, Anelda. And natural sense, as soon as you started talking, I was quite excited looking at your background in developing infrastructure, because one of the things that we realize is quite lacking in Africa is infrastructure that supports the practice of open science across the region. And most of the infrastructure that are available are developed outside, but most of these are open and accessible, so researchers can use them. So we have a plan to establish more local partnerships. In fact, we've been working in the background to do this, and we've already established local partnerships with some institutions across Africa. And we'd be very glad to work with you and your group on how to partner and then apply for funding together, because the most important thing is that at the end, we are collaborating towards a more open and reproducible research ecosystem, and where there is room for all the factors and actors that are responsible for ensuring this is achieved. So yes, the floor is quite open, and we'll be glad to work together. So you could send us an email to team@africanaren.org so that we can start the conversation going, and we can see how we can move from there. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Looking forward to exploring new ways to collaborate.
Thank you, Anelda. And just to add to Emmanuel, I think you can see that there are many initiatives trying to promote open science in Africa, but I think until now, everyone is sort of working in an isolated island. And like the best way to get the quickest and the best result is for us all to collaborate. So, so this would be definitely great. So I don't see any more questions in the chat, but I don't know if one of the participants have a question, then maybe you could raise your hand and ask.
Yeah, I think Tabiso has posted in the chat that there is an organization called ASOP. And yeah, Tabiso, ASOP is one of the organizations that we are looking at partnering with. I think Lami stressed on how effort so far has been quite dispersed. So with AREN, one priority for what we are trying to do is to look at all the organizations in Africa that have been pushing forward open science, like Wakren and Lipson's, like the Association of African Universities, like the African Open Science Platform, like TCC Africa, which has just started the Africa PID Alliance. So we are quite aware of all these groups and organizations across Africa that are pushing forward open science, and our intent is to work hand in hand with them to ensure that we achieve the open African research ecosystem that we are looking for. So yes, so we are quite aware of OSOP, and we are looking forward to working with them towards achieving what we want.
Okay, thank you, Emmanuel. Are there any questions from participants? Okay, if not, I guess we could move to our mini panel discussion between Marcus and Emmanuel. And okay, we have a question from Amna Yusuf. Okay, you might unmute yourself and ask the question, Amna, if you like. Okay, so Amna's question is, what is next? Oh, it's Aman, sorry. Sorry, Aman.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm glad to be here. Thank you so much. So I'm from Ethiopia, one of the college in this, and so what's really then expected from us to move this forward? Thank you.
Emmanuel?
Yeah, sorry, Lamis, could you repeat that? I think I missed the question. Sorry about that.
He's basically asking what's next. Yeah, I mean, what are the next steps that AREN would like the global community of African scholars and researchers to do?
Thank you very much, Aman. Right now, what we are trying to do is to work on our training model and resources, and then hopefully next year we'll be able to start our training. So what we will do is we will roll out to the community and let them know that we are about to start our training. And like we said, it is involved in 3 different levels. And the 3rd level, which is the trainer, is optional, especially for people who want to take a more active part in supporting roles. So that is the next step that we are trying to take, and we will be glad if you could join our community so that we can consistently be sending updates around this to you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Emmanuel. I hope this answers your question, Aman.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we also have a question from Pauline. You could unmute yourself.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I'm happy to be here. I'm from Zambia. I'm a librarian by profession, currently working at a medical university, and the current vice president for the Zambia Library and Information Association. So I have 2 questions. The first one is, do we already have communities in Zambia? And if they are there, how can I link up with them? And if there isn't any, how can I start up one? And then the second question is with regards to the participation of librarians and information specialists, who are the managers of the information that the researchers produce, and also a link between the researchers and the people that use the information. So how are you engaging librarians in this discussion or conversation? Because I believe that they're critical aspect in as much as we talk about open science and how we can make research products openly accessible. And from, I think, observation and interaction with librarians, one thing that is missing out is capacity building on how they can go about providing this information and the different platforms, that is digital platforms, where this information should sit. So there is need for capacity building and also infrastructure development. So do we have communities in Zambia? And if not, how can we come up with them? And then how are you engaging librarians? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Pauline. I think one of the reasons why we decided to create the continent-wide open science community is because we wanted a peek into the local research ecosystems to see what is actually going on. There could be activity within a country that the team at AREN may not be aware of, but when we have a researcher from that country, they could serve as a link to the community and let us know what is going on. So you used Liberia as a case study. So if you have a community member from Liberia, what AREN intends to do is when we have plans to set up local networks in Liberia, that would be our contact person that would reach out to serve as a link to the local community to let us know how things are going on in the local community and how we can engage institutions across that region. If they are also well-organized organizations within the country, these are organizations that we can also reach out to, like the Library Consortium Services, that we can reach out to ensure that we collaborate with them. And we do prioritize the importance of librarians in promoting open science because in most cases at universities, these are usually the support systems for the researchers. So as part of our training, we are hoping that librarians and library consortia would take up their trainer model so that they can become support systems in open science for their researcher communities. And that's why initially I was speaking, I said that we are hoping that every community or institution we engage would at least have one person that actually goes through the trainer role so that they would receive adequate training to be able to support their community. And we believe that librarians would be a splendid resource to go to when it comes to developing these ideas. So I think that is how we intend to go about things. But I think, like Marcus said earlier, every country and context requires a different approach. So the approach we may use for Liberia may be different from the approach we may use for Ghana. And the factors that could influence this could also be the level of open science activity within the region. So if there is nothing, that means we are starting from scratch, and that is not difficult. We just need one person that can decide to volunteer and go through our training from level 1 to, let's say, level 3 and become someone that can start a local AREN. If there is already activity, we can look at how we can engage the local community. I don't know if this answers all the questions. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Yes, my questions are answered. So if you need anyone from Zambia, I think I'm available for the training.
Yeah, Pauline, you're actually on our list. I know you're part of our community, so it's good to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you. And I think we have one more question in the chat from Musa Ali. Would you like to unmute? Musa Ali, or okay, so the question is basically, how do we engage community in open science? I think if Professor Marcus could help us with this, because he has much more experience.
Thank you. I mean, it links to the previous question. There are clearly people who are very interested in these issues and already engaged. And I think the problem is that when those people are working in isolation, it can feel very lonely. So the reason for creating communities is so that people feel like they're supported, they have others that they can turn to for advice. And increasingly, we can do that virtually, electronically, in a way that makes the geographical distance between people less of an issue. So I think we start by creating those communities of people who are interested in these issues, but then we also use those people as agents of change, as people who can drive the change on the ground by talking to their other colleagues who may be less aware of open science, and bring those people on board by inviting them to journal clubs, inviting them to join virtual meetings, sharing primers on how to make a start on open science practices. And I think the key thing is to explain to people the benefits of working in that way, that you can share your research more widely, you can recognize intermediate research outputs as well as the final research outputs. It serves to improve the quality of your research. It encourages best practice so that you curate your own data and code and workflows more effectively. All of those are reasons to engage in open science that benefits the person who's engaging in them. And then there are all the wider benefits to the community. But the starting point, I think, is those communities of people who are interested, engaged already, and willing to be those agents of change in their local and national communities.
Thank you, Professor. I think we have one more question for you from Hilda. And she's asking whether there are any ways that UK AREN and AREN facilitate knowledge exchange between researchers in UK and Africa regarding research reproducibility.
And not just UK, I would say. That's a great question. We have set up a regular meeting of representatives of the different national reproducibility networks and now continental reproducibility networks. So that's a way of us coming together as communities of reproducibility networks to share what we're doing, to learn from each other, to apply for funding where that's an option, to create resources that we can all use. So again, that structure that I described within the UK now has a supranational dimension with those national reproducibility networks. And by bringing those different representatives together, we can foster that spirit of collaboration globally.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor. So I'm aware of everyone's time. We have 1 minute to go. And I would like to thank everyone for attending this event. And I hope that you at least got some of the answers that you were looking for and some of the interest that brought you to attend this session. So before we all go, I would like to ask if anyone all of you would be comfortable to turn on your cameras. We'd like to take a quick photo to remember this moment. And if you can, it's okay. If you can, then it's fine. Thank you. Okay, Emmanuel, I'll leave this to you. Big smiles.
So are we gonna say cheese?
Yeah, cheese.
Okay, so cheese.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we're good. Let me just take one more, if that is okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna disturb you again and ask you to say cheese.
Cheese.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think you are certain now. Yeah.
Thank you everyone, and it's been a pleasure to have you here, and we're sure looking forward to have you in future events. And as we said, feel free to contact us via email, and please use the link to the survey to join our community. And we'll sure be contacting you again after the event. So thank you everyone. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Will the recording be shared somewhere?
Yes, we will send the link to the recording and the slides and everything to the participants.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.